What's up guys, welcome to another video, and today we're going to be doing the Barque HoH. And so I actually recorded this before, but I accidentally had my microphone on mute, so I'm recording sort of over the video using my editor. So that was a bit of a fail for me, but anyway, so starting off I'll be using just like a YOLO team. I think the first few floors are fairly easy. I would say maybe up to about B7. It's about similar to like the difficulty of B2 on the old HoH. I think after that it's closer to B3 HoH, and I think the difference between 8, 9, and 10 aren't too big, but they're about roughly B3 level. So for those floors, I'll be doing like a safer team. Now, if you're less progressed than I am, or or you're like a new player, then maybe you want to use a safer team for the B1 to B5, etc. I think this is easy. Like this HoH is easily doable for everyone. All right. Even the top floors, you may maybe you need to use like a manual team and use things like Beretta and sort of treat it like a TOA hard floor, but you only have to do it once, so as long as you can manage to get through it, whether you manual or not, then then it's good enough. If you can't finish the whole all 10 floors, don't worry about it too much. As long as you can at least farm one, that's good enough for any HoH. But obviously you want to farm as many as you can so that you have as many skill ups as possible for your future galleon or frigate, right? Now I forgot what I was gonna say, but anyway, so these floors here, I'll probably maybe discuss them when the runs aren't so fast, but there's a couple of main stages, I should say, that have some unit combinations that are a little bit trickier for like an auto team. So you just want to be careful of those ones if you can't if you're not YOLOing through it, right? If you can't clear all the ways in one shot, then you have to be careful of a couple of these floors. One of the floors is, I believe, the second floor. This one. So this one it has Karak and also Malaka, right? So Malaka puts up bombs, and Karak can detonate the bombs, right? So try to bring immunity if you can, or at least some sort of cleansing. So something like a Veramos is like a good free-to-play version that you can use to get rid of those bombs before the Karak can detonate them, right? Alternatively, you could use something like a Konomiya, Delphoy, Veladril, any sort of cleanser would work, right? Lisa as well. And the other stage to look out for is, I believe, stage 5 or 6. I think I already passed it, but it's the one with the Dark Barbarian King, because the Dark Barbarian King can proc additional turns from the third skill, and that can be deadly, if he procs too many turns, especially because there's there's multiple of them in that stage, right? So if you're autoing, just be careful. You might want to bring something like a defense break, sorry, not defense break, defense buff, or an attack break, like AoE attack break. The Monkey King also can be a little bit tricky, it's because of these Kung Fu girls. So once the Kung Fu girls use their third skills, they'll have a chance to revenge. So just be careful with that. Try if you're bringing cooldown resets, maybe just be careful. Things like Zyros, you might want to be careful with that. But a good way to counter them is things like stuns or freeze, because as long as you can do it before they use their third ability, then they won't revenge you, and it will just stop. Or even if they do have utilize those skills, then you can freeze them, and then they can't proc revenge while they're frozen or stunned. Okay, so I think I'll be switching to the safer team here. So with the safe team, you don't have to use Verd, right? I'm using Verd because, I mean, I have him, but if you don't have him, don't worry about it. You can still do it without him. Maybe use like something like Bernard instead, because they sort of fulfill the same sort of purpose in that it speeds up your team. You won't have the speed lead, which is unfortunate, but you can use like HP lead instead and it's still fine. Like, so you can use like Veramos leader or something like that. I would recommend for a safe team also bring a reviver. It doesn't have to be Brian. Brian, in my opinion, is probably one of the best PvE revivers, but you can use like whichever reviver you built for DB10. You can use that. Like, you can use things like Michelle. You can use McKean, which is the Water Undyne. Yeah, it just depends what you have available. But yeah, it's good to bring a revive to just have that insurance policy, you know, in case something dies. Preferably someone that doesn't like revive with very little health. For example, say like Tion. Tion, he revives with like very small amount of health. Same for things like Vanessa. I just can't really think about any others off the top of my head, but just be careful with those ones because when they start off with very low health, any units that are going to move on the opponent's side, they'll more likely target those low health units, especially if they're neutral, at least on in terms of elemental advantage and disadvantage. Yeah, just be careful with that, otherwise they get focused and just die again, right? So that's why things like Brian are very good, because when he revives, he evens out everyone's HP. So as long as everyone else is fairly high in HP, then everyone will have like, they'll lose a little bit of health, but that's okay, because you bring a group healer and then it can recover quite easily from that. As far as the heal is concerned, I'm using Emma in this point of the video, mostly because I just wanted to try her. I built her for TOA hard because she brings defense buff, and I don't really need attack buff for TOA hard from Chasun, because I normally used to use Chasun for auto, right? But instead I decided to try out Emma because she sort of fulfills a similar purpose in that she has an AoE burst heal, and then she also adds a defense buff, which is quite nice for TOA hard autoing. That way I don't need to bring something like a Basalt or anything like that. I thought maybe it could be worked using a similar purpose in HoH, so I'll just try her out. But you can use any healer you want. It doesn't have to be Emma, it doesn't have to be Jasun. You can be Bella, is fine. Like, Bella's free to play, very easy to get. Everyone should have one. You can use Bella, you can use Jasun, Ariel, you know, whatever you have that's available that has a decent, like, strong heal. Maybe even Colleen is okay as well, because Colleen will also target win units, right? Because of elemental advantage, and therefore when you get to the boss stage, she'll attack break the boss, which is quite nice on auto. And she also has a pretty decent burst heal and sort of fulfills a similar purpose to Jasun, like with AoE heal plus attack buff. And also Veramos, of course, is highly recommended because all the pirates have defense break on skill 1, so you want to get rid of those. And of course there's the Malakas that you want to make sure you remove bombs from, and there's also there's this branding from manas and stuff as well, and also like heal blocks, etc. So you want to make sure you can remove those. If you don't want to use Veramos, you can also use like any other cleanser will work as well. But I think Veramos has provides pretty good utility for this because he also does AoE stun, even though it's not reliable. But any stuns will always help make the runs safer, right? Now, I guess other alternatives, you can run things like Basalt for the defense buff. Shannon is also a decent, really strong defense buffer because it lasts for 3 turns and it's on a pretty short cooldown considering it's a 3-turn buff. Megan maybe is okay as well. Who else? Okay, as far as the DPS is concerned, I'm using Fuel Mars because my Fuel Mars is fairly tanky, right? So it's recommended if you're bringing Fuel Mars, try to make him make sure he's at least 18k HP, I would say, so that he doesn't die too easily, especially because there's like the Barque on the final stage. But the main advantage of running Fuel Mars in HoH is that he hits every wave with elemental advantage, right? So he doesn't have to worry about glancing or anything like that. I guess the main thing is just to make sure that he can survive, right? So if you don't make him tanky, at least try to bring defense buff and attack break to make sure that the run is, as safe as it can be. Alternatively, you can use any tanky DPS. I would recommend trying to make them like don't bring anything too YOLO, but try to bring something that preferably has a defense break on its own skill. That would help as well. But if not, then as long as it's like it's a safe unit, like let's say something like Chow, Camilla, even Perna's okay, as long as your Perna's decently tanky. You can even run like some sort of bruiser units, like say Darien, because Darien can protect everyone else as well, and he does like reasonable damage on like multiple HP runes. Or you could use something like Beretta to like just slowly dot everything, and just treat it, as I said before, like TOA hard. Or any other unit that does a similar thing to Beretta can also work. So for example, the Grim Reapers, if you're trying to manual it. Otherwise, you can also try to bring some crowd control units. So if you bring crowd control units, probably try to bring at least 2 of them. That way you can sort of chain CC them with things like stuns and freeze. So for example, things like Varad, Tyron, Ganymede, Wuchi, the Dark and Water Grim Reaper. Also things like ATB reduction. So I mentioned a couple already, Varad and Wuchi, those sort of units. I will also turn them as crowd control units as well, because like say for Wuchi, you can run him with Despair and he can like proc Despair stuns onto the units as well. It's not reliable, but it's an option. And yeah, so you can either do like stuns or attack bar reduction. Attack bar reduction is a little bit better against things like the bosses, like the mini boss and the final boss, because they can't get stunned, right? So for example, on the Monkey King boss, the Monkey King can't be stunned, but the Kung Fu Girls can be stunned. So you probably want to try to bring a little bit of ATB reduction to stop the mini boss from moving. It's also a little bit annoying that the mini boss can't be stunned, because that means he always has that chance to revenge proc if you hit the Kung Fu Girls. So yeah, if you bring immunity, that will help protect you against that. Also, things like bombers are also reasonable to use, because they're similar to just like crowd control units. You do need another crowd control unit to I guess stun or freeze them first, and that way it gives your bombs time to tick over, and then because you need 2 turns before they detonate and stun them, right? So you're just adding extra layers of crowd control to the units. So yeah, that's a similar strategy to TOA hard. Another alternative is you can also bring things like heavy debuff units, like say Aria, or like Spectra for the slow debuff. So if you slow them and also stun them or whatever, then you can stop them from moving a lot. Okay, so as far as the HoH is concerned, I highly recommend farming it for everyone. Obviously, Galleon is a prime candidate for skilling up. The other pirates, so like the light one is not, I would say, pretty underwhelming. The dark one, Frigate, is obviously one of the strongest monsters. He's really powerful, so anyone who has that, you'll probably want to make sure you farm HoH. And let's see, Barque himself, he's a, I don't know, he's okay. He's got some decent like ATB reductions, so single target. Actually, YDCB made a video on him recently, and it does reasonable damage when you rune it towards damage. So if you are in need of a wind DPS unit, you could try that. Also, Karak, the fire one, he's sort of like a bad version of Sierra. I don't wouldn't really recommend using him, but I guess some people have. I think some people have utilized him. Um, if you want to use like a bomb team and like make sure you can detonate the bomb straight away, you could try that if you want, but I guess it's more dependent on whether you've already got your Galleon max skilled. I think Galleon's always going to be the most important one to skill up. If you don't have a Galleon yet, I would wait for for when you pull a Galleon. Um, and yeah, so that's pretty much all the pirates. Now it's even reasonable to make 2 Galleons. I personally have 2 Galleons, and a lot of top players now these days are looking to build a second Galleon if they haven't already. The reason being that you can use one for PvP and one for PvE, because like let's say the PvP one, you'll typically want him to be a bit tankier, and you also probably want to put him on like Will as well, and Will is not really that great for PvE. While for a PvE Galleon, you probably want to make sure he has like you probably want to change him to like a damage sort of build. You still want him to be fast and accurate, but you don't need him to be that tanky, right? Especially for things like Speed Dragons B10 or Speed Giants B10. So having a like DPS version of a Galleon will help for those fights, and that's why some people will make 2. And even having like a spare Galleon for Guild Wars is useful to have as well, in case the other one dies, of course. Okay, so I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover. So I think this video probably be uploaded a bit late, like it's probably like midway through HoH already, so I hope there's enough time for you guys to just check it out and get it done yourself. You'll still probably have another like couple of days. The good thing about HoH is there's 3 days to do it, right? And it's only like maybe maximum an hour of your day, depending on how fast your run is. I mean, even my ult, who has way less progress, like the runes are much worse on my ult, he was able to do the whole 10 floors, right? And I know a lot of my like my friends who are not as progressed in the game, like they used to only farm like say B2, and my ult could only farm B2 as well. But even then, like those people can farm all 10, or not farm, but like complete all 10 stages and get like more pieces than they did in the previous, like in the old HoHs. Alright, so that's it from me. There's still a lot more stages to go through on this video, so I'm just gonna leave it there, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the video. If you're not interested in like seeing the rest of the stages, that's up to you. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Bye bye.
take all